Hello everyone, today we are telling the incredible story of Paisley Close. So how are you all? Hope you are all happy and healthy and well out there wherever you are. A little bit of history today, and one of my favourite history stories. It's really short though, it's not a big one, and probably the one that really started to instill in me an enjoyment for the history of Edinburgh. And it's the story of this close right here, Paisley Close. Now, you walk past it and you'll miss it. We're on the Royal Mile right now, just to give you a rough idea where we are. Right there, that's John Knox's house, right there. And then if we look exactly up the other way, that's a Kirk right there. So right in between the two, and Paisley Close right here. And it looks different from a lot of all the other closes on the Royal Mile because of what's on the top of it as you go in. So let's have a look. So this is Paisley Close right here, and actually if we go in, looks like it's a kilt maker in there now, which is, I mean, how beautiful does that look? Just looking in there looks incredible. But this here, and I think I have told this story before, but it is one of my favourites, but it's not long. This lad here, and the saying that's written above there, is very important to the history of this area, Paisley Close. Now, before we get too deep into it, we need to have a look and understand what the closes and what were the tenement buildings that used to live in this area are a bit more like. But unfortunately, this is no longer that building. It's still an old building, but it's not old enough. This is only about 150 to 200 years old. We need older. 12 o'clock. You can hear the bells at St Giles and the Kirk at the same time. We are probably all used to tall buildings nowadays. Like, say for example, the opposite me here, the hotel here, Radisson Hotel here on the Royal Mile, so the part of it, so at varying ages, but still fairly old. We're going to go a little bit further up, but you know, all the buildings here are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories high, 6 to 7 stories high. Not tall in this day and age, but did used to be, because Edinburgh is the home, is the original skyscrapers. The buildings that used to be on the Royal Mile were the first world skyscrapers. Now, we all know skyscrapers because, you know, they're hundreds of stories high. That's what we think of a skyscraper, right up, you know, in the sky, essentially. Funny that, but that's not how they started. That's not what they originally were, at least not that tall. They were 9, 10, 11 stories high, because that's what the technology allowed. That's how high people could carry bricks. I don't know, but that's what they were. They were in hundreds of stories high. And the first skyscrapers in the world were here in Edinburgh. And it's not because of any other reason apart from necessity. The population of Edinburgh was growing exponentially, but Edinburgh wasn't expanding, at least not outwards, because Edinburgh was contained in the Flodden Wall. If you haven't seen the story of the Flodden Wall, I'll leave a link in the corner and in the description so you can go check it out, about Edinburgh being walled in. This is the size of it, and it shall remain. So with the population growing, but the city not, the only way they could create enough housing was by going up, and that's what they did. So as we start to get further up the Royal Mile here, you can start to see a little bit more what the buildings were like. These tall here, how many stories is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories from the front. But can I go down this close? Some closes you can go down, some closes you can't. No, I can't. Can I? Yes, I can. So let's go down that close. So it's not the prettiest of view right now, hotel here and things, but this is the same building. Okay, this is the same building from the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's it there. See? Same building, same building, same building, same building, same building, same building, going down the hill. So it might be, you know, fairly tall there, but it's got another 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 stories down. So we're up to about 10 or 11 stories there. And this isn't an unusual story because this side of Edinburgh is built on a hill. So you get it all like that. So you go back 300-400 years, 500 years, that's a really, really, really tall building. It still is now. Go a little bit further up to get more of an idea, so you can see more of that sort of building and how they looked before we go back down. So, but anyway, you get an idea that the only way Edinburgh could accommodate its population was by building up. So that's what they did. They built up. Not only were they building up, but they weren't building fast enough. The Highland clearances, people emigrating to Scotland from Ireland and various other places. The population was still growing. They were coming to Edinburgh because it was the capital city. Stuff was coming in from the city of Leith. It was a separate city at the time, but it was the docks, it was the harbours. It was essentially the main gate of things coming into Scotland. So there was work, people were coming here. I don't know how much work there was, but people were coming here hoping for work. The population grew and grew and grew. The buildings themselves didn't get much bigger from the insides. So you would have, well, I don't want to say houses, but areas inside these buildings with 10, 11, 12 people in one of these spaces, maybe more. In each one of these houses, each one of these rooms, each one of these windows would maybe have 10, 11, 12 people living in them. Let's go have a look at Gladstones Land, which is still looking kind of how the buildings looked then. So here near the top of the Royal Mile, here's Gladstones Land. Again, we have been in here to have a look at it. They were kind enough to let me go in and show you all. But you can see this building has been kept as close as possible to how it looked. Some of the buildings inside are incredible. You can see, truthfully, it's not a wide building. 1, 2, 3 windows, and those windows are close together. That's a staircase, so not a big building at all. And you can see how the windows work, and so you can see they're tightly packed and built up as high as possible. Now here's the thing as well, with all these buildings as well, the posh people lived in the middle, poor people lived, well, the poor people lived the bottom and the top. Bottom because of the smell, because people were throwing their sewage out the windows and it was rolling down the street. So the middle people would have to, the bottom people would have to suffer the smell. The middle people would be, you know, people with the money. And the top people, which you think would be the people with the money, but it's too much like hard work having to climb all the way up there. So the poor people would have to climb all the way up to the top as well. So there's the rich, there's the poor, and there's the poor. But that gives you a rough idea of what it was kind of like in this sort of time. Now that we've got a rough idea, and I say rough idea, of what the tenement buildings and what life was like living on the Royal Mile back then. And I say rough, I'm not a historian. I've said many times I'm not a historian. No matter what it says on IMDb now, I am not a historian. The story here of Paisley Close. Apparently there was a baker's here somewhere. This was the closest on the Royal Mile, as I've told you many times. There used to be way more of them than there are now. There was loads of them, but there was a baker here, and he was extending his oven without the right skills. At least this is the story that I know. He was extending his oven without the right skills and essentially knocked part of the supporting wall down. Oh, supporting wall, that's going to be expensive, that is, love. Oh, take your time. Oh, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. So he didn't want it to cost him, so he did it himself. Unfortunately, this did cause the buildings to become unstable. So, on the 24th of November, 1861, the tenement building that used to stand right here came crashing to the ground. The whole thing collapsed. There was apparently 77 people living in that building at the time. Remember, it was a lot thinner than the normal buildings and skyscraper buildings of nowadays. That was a lot of people crammed into a very small space. 35 of them were either found dead or later died in hospital. So 35 people died. But when this building crashed, the whole city, which essentially is not much more than where we're standing, a little bit further down, up and down and out a little bit. But the whole city came running here. A building had collapsed. So everyone came running and everyone started helping. Everyone started trying to dig out and see if there was any survivors. They'd been digging for a while and eventually they were starting to give up hope. And as they started to walk away, thinking that, you know, most people were probably dead and they wouldn't need to rush anymore, they started to hear a voice from underneath the rubble. And that voice went... At that point, everyone was kind of like, did you hear something? I thought I heard something. Did you hear something? I could have sworn I heard something. I thought I heard someone shouting, we'll all listen. Everyone, we'll listen again. So they listened again, and still they heard... And what that voice was saying was, heave awa, chaps, I'm no dead yet. Or translated, heave away, keep digging, I'm not dead yet. This was a young lad. The name of the young lad, at least as far as I could find out, was Joseph McIvory, and he was 12 years old. This kind of changed things in the city as well. The city chambers passed new laws because tens of thousands of people had flocked to Edinburgh to live here, and the people were just crammed. The building probably itself was unstable with the amount of people living there, but with that sort of tragedy, killing 35 people in an instant like that, at that time, when it wasn't a war, for all of a sudden happen, that was a huge deal. It would be a huge deal now as well if a building came down and killed 35 people just out of nowhere. So you can imagine, for that time, that was really, 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 really big stuff. This caused the city chambers to enact the City Improvements Act, and this essentially meant they ripped down old dilapidated buildings, getting rid of all the closes that used to be here because the buildings were unsafe, so they were knocked down and rebuilt. Now, some people might say it's a shame to have lost that history, but these were unsafe buildings, and the buildings that are now standing in their places are still coming up for 200 years old. These are not young buildings in themselves anyway, but it essentially changed the shape and what the Royal Mile was like. It still has remnants of it. A lot of the closes are still here. There's just nowhere near as many of them. Anyway, when they rebuilt here, in honour of the young lad, they added this. So, on top of Paisley Close, next time you're passing, say hi to Joseph McIvory, right there, with his famous saying, heave awa, chaps, I'm no deed yet. So there you have it, the story of Paisley Close. I love that story. It's a short story, but it's a short story that impacted Edinburgh because of the buildings and then the way the Royal Mile was. It's a brilliant little monument on there as well. It's another one of these little bits, if you walk past you'll miss it. So whenever you go anywhere in Edinburgh, remember, look up. You're missing history above your heads. But yeah, it's one of my favourites. It's absolutely one of my favourites. So next time you're passing by, remember to say hi to Mr. McIvory. If you enjoyed that, guys, please remember, as always, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Let me know, did you know that story? Do you know any other cool little stories? The Closes have loads of little stories which are brilliant. So maybe we'll start to tell more of the individual stories, pay more attention to one story at a time and get to tell it a little bit more. Also, we are incredibly close. We are just over 600 subscribers away from hitting 10,000 subscribers, which is incredible, and I need your help. I want, if and when we hit that, I want to do something. I want to celebrate in some way. So if you don't follow us on Instagram already, please head over to Instagram, follow the Broonfords, because I'm going to put a thing out there for you to try to help us celebrate. I'd like to do some sort of video. I don't know, it may be something different, maybe something in Edinburgh, a challenge or something, but something to celebrate, because it means the world that almost 10,000 of you have decided to follow the Broonfords on YouTube, so it really means the world. So please, if you've got ideas of ways to celebrate, let me know. But yes, again, like, share, subscribe, look after yourselves out there, keep yourself loud truck driving past. Keep yourself safe and healthy. Till next time. Bye, humans.